Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Who's Who P100 Profiles, brought to you by the Muslim American Society. I'm your host, Abd Dawood Marshall, and I'm really excited to welcome our next guest today. He has a doctoral degree in executive leadership from Manhattanville College. He earned his BA, his MA, and his doctoral degree over 30 years while working full-time as a business entrepreneur, as a community leader, and as a father. He is truly a tale of patience and perseverance, and we have a lot to learn from him today. So please stay and listen as we chat with Dr. Maher El Jamal. Welcome. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Maher.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Doctor.
Wonderful to have you. I'm so excited to hear more about your story. From what I know, it's a fascinating one. So let's start at the beginning. I understand that you are a member of the Palestinian diaspora. And as we all know, the Palestinian experience is very much one of displacement and exile. So I want to know about your story, your journey, and how you came to the U.S.
We lived in Brazil, and for a number of years, I believe my father stayed in Brazil for a total of 16 years. Mm-hmm. And I arrived in America when I was 9 years old. An uncle of ours had come to the United States, and he was able to attain citizenship. And he's a very interesting person that we should look into. His name is Ahmed Ibrahim El Jamal. Mm. And if you go to the museum in Michigan, you will be able to hear his voice and read about him. And may Allah have mercy on him, because he was the reason for all of us coming to America. A humongous family. We have many El Jamals here in New York as a result of him inviting us to the United States. So we were in Brazil and we came, and we had a couple of other uncles that were also in Brazil that came to the U.S. And the other uncles that were in Jordan. Because of him, America became our new home, and we're thankful for that.
So he was the anchor.
Yes.
And what do you recall from that transition from your childhood in Brazil to now being this 9-year-old boy here in the U.S.?
We lived in a community. There were a lot of Hispanics in Manhattan, Upper Manhattan. Mm-hmm. And I did not understand the difference between Portuguese or Spanish. So I realized that I could understand a little bit of what they were saying, and they could understand a little bit of what I was saying. Mm-hmm. So I thought they were speaking bad Portuguese, and they thought I was speaking bad Spanish. But I didn't realize they would, we didn't realize it was a different language. But then, in a few weeks' time, I was, evolving and learning, and I learned that they are Spanish people. They speak Spanish, and I speak Portuguese. But I said to them, okay, if you speak Spanish to me slowly, I'll be able to understand. And it was always this, you're Arabic, so why are you speaking Portuguese? And we had to explain how we ended up in Brazil and so on. But I always painted the Palestinian flag in my notebook. I always painted the Brazilian flag too. And at that time, I knew I was Palestinian, but I always wanted to go back to Brazil because that's where my childhood was. So I didn't have a memory of Palestine.
Did you speak Arabic in the home as well as Portuguese at school?
I spoke Portuguese all the time. Yeah. And the bad Spanish. And then, the bad Spanish became good Spanish. And my father would try to give me $1 for each word I was saying in Arabic. And one time, he got really mad at me, and I said to him, I started crying. So he says, just speak in Arabic. And I said, well, you want me to cry in Arabic too? Mm. So it was tough. Mm. My father was a merchant in Brazil, very successful. Mm. But when we came to the United States, he had to start from scratch. Hmm. Very sad.
You must have sacrificed a lot for your family.
A lot. Yeah. I remember so much. But it's hard to talk about it sometimes.
understand.
Very hard. And when we arrived here, although we were pretty well off in Brazil, my father sold everything on credit to people, the business, the home. It was all together. It was all in one unit. Mm-hmm. And everything, furniture. And those people promised to pay us when we arrived here, before we left. They promised to pay before we left Brazil. Mm-hmm. And those payments never came. So when we arrived here, my dad tried to get them to pay some money. And then during that time, there was some type of, the money just totally depreciated in Brazil. So even if they did pay, it wasn't going to make a big difference. So my dad started working, doing deliveries. And, we bought some used furniture, which we were not used to that. And we even, got social service help. We started from the beginning.
Yeah.
I remember my mother, going to the church to get a free turkey. Yeah. But then, my dad built himself back up, became a partner in the supermarket with his brothers. And then, then became a partner with another brother in the gas station. And then, then sold his share there and then opened the same brother that brought us to the United States. And then each one went their way. And my dad bought another gas station on his own that we all worked together as a family there. And, we always knew how to, we were merchants from a young age ourselves. So we always brought money home somehow, as young as 9, a couple of days after arriving here, we were already in supermarkets packing bags to make a couple of dollars. And then, we'll go and, maybe at the age of 10, start buying newspapers for 10 cents at the time. And sell them for 15 cents, 20 cents. And we used to walk into bars and restaurants and try to sell the newspapers, because people used to like to look at the numbers. I don't know if you in the back of the newspaper, and they'll give us a quarter. A lot of times they used to give us a quarter for the newspaper, and it added up. And sometimes these guys, they felt bad for us, so they'll read back the headlines, and they'll look at the numbers that they want to look at, some horse numbers or something. And then they'll give us a newspaper back after giving us the quarter, so we'll be able to resell that same newspaper. So by the time I finished, talking to all the people in that location, by the time I'm coming out, the guy will say, "Kid, here, take the newspaper back. Thank you." And I used to, we started doing that, and then selling chocolate and perfume and clothing, and then all those experiences made us who we are today.
Absolutely.
So we were always in school and then making money, but on our own. Like other kids would go work like now in Dunkin' Donuts or whatever, or McDonald's. We were buying things and selling them, all different things. And there's a long list of those things. And they start the newspapers and go as far as tool sets, little tools. Yeah. And we did very well. And, as soon as we were able to get out of the social service help, we did. And then my mom used to go to the gas station and help my dad count the money. And she used to hide all the $100 bills from him. And then he wanted to buy a house. And she goes, "I got money." And she had all the deposit ready for him for the house. And he asked her, "Where did you get the money from?" She goes, "When I used to count the money, I used to put the hundreds to the side." And, it all came together.
You were working, it sounds like, full time, even, through your childhood, through high school. When did you decide, I want to start taking college classes, I want to pursue higher education?
So I have a doctorate degree, but I don't have a high school diploma until today. So I was not a very good student in school. And I didn't really believe in education. I believed in mathematics. I remember even as a kid to argue with people and say, we don't need English language classes, or just teach people mathematics and they'll survive.
Yeah.
And I used to actually argue with people about that, which was silly. And then later I realized that everything comes together and makes you who you are. But I was so focused on mathematics, and I was very good at it. Maybe that's why I believed in it so much. But I just felt that with mathematics, you could almost do anything. You can buy and sell. You could do anything with mathematics. If you know how to speak, why do you need to know so much more about English? So I dropped out of high school. I used to be in the wrestling team when I was in high school. And after the wrestling season would be over, I dropped out because I didn't need school, because I finished wrestling and I knew math. That's what I thought. And there was I want to say a dean or a guidance counselor. I think he was a dean. A dean. His name was Mr. Montalvo. He said, "You know what? I encourage you to drop out." I said, "Really?" And he walked me out to the hallway, and he waited for this man called Dr. G to walk out. And he goes, "You see Dr. G there? He was a high school dropout." And then he realized the importance of education, and he came back, and he's a doctor now.
Wow.
So, those little things that you think, just go away, and it never went away. It stuck. And then after that, I worked and made a lot of money. I did very well for myself. And we're in different types of business. In those days, we opened the seafood businesses. We had seafood stores. We wholesaled, retailed. We had a couple of partners, cousins of ours, that we worked together. We did very, very well. Thank God. Alhamdulillah. And at my day off, I used to go work in the gas station with my dad. So, the vacation or the day off was being in a different job.
Yeah.
So that's how we took a day off those days.
Yeah.
But things changed and improved fast.
Yeah.
So we're in the seafood business. And then so silly. And, people cannot relate to it sometimes, but this is the truth and this is what happened. My wife had we have a total of 8 babies that were born, but we only have 4 that are alive. So after we had, we have a recessive gene, and my wife has a recessive gene, because we don't follow the Nasihah of the Prophet ﷺ, and we marry, we're cousins. And we lost our first baby after full delivery from polycystic kidney disease. No, not the first baby, the second baby. But the first baby we lost from polycystic kidney disease. After my wife was like 7 months pregnant, they told us, the baby has a rare kidney disease and it's genetic. So, the baby came and the baby survived for like 16 hours. And we fell in love with the baby, but then the baby died, and we had to go bury the baby. So my wife was still in the hospital. I went with an uncle of mine, another uncle, not the same. His name is Suleiman. And we went to a cemetery in New Jersey. And the hospital told us they can take care of the burial, they can do everything, but we don't have to. But, we wanted to do the Islamic thing, correct thing. And the baby looked horrible because it had to do an autopsy. It was all sewn up all over, but alhamdulillah, you will not believe it, but I smiled that day. I smiled because I knew that was Allah's will. And my friends, when we were in the funeral home preparing the baby for burial, they were asking me, "How can you smile?" Inshallah, it was a sign of belief. Inshallah, I want to say that, we believe that it's Allah's will, and we accept it. You're going to say, what does this have to do with education? We took the baby to burial. And during the process, my uncle points to a grave and says, "This girl is from our village." We're in New Jersey now. We lived in New York, but the burial was in New Jersey. This girl is from our village. By the way, I know her mom now and I know her family, and I'm not even sure how accurate his story was, but it impacted me. He said she got her doctorate degree, and soon after that, she died because she was very sick. Was in a wheelchair. And I'm not sure how accurate his story was in regards to the doctorate, but she did get a degree of some sort. Okay. But to me, I always lived knowing that she had received a doctorate degree. And after that, she died. For some reason, it taught me that you have to keep working, even that after you earn what you're supposed to earn, or do the best that you can to get to the best position possible. And even if you die after that, it's okay. It just by him pointing to that grave taught me that. There was no explanations. It was just nothing. It was just that simple statement that he told me, this girl that's buried next to your baby, this is, her story. And that was like, the second big whammy, if you want to call it, that really stuck for many years. And then I was driving one day, and I always wanted to improve my language skills, because now I'm past the mathematics stuff, and I realized that, you need to communicate and you need to learn. So I used to put, 1010 Wins, the news in New York. I don't know, we have that. It's called 1010 Wins. It's a news station, or WB or CBS, W something other. There were two radio stations. There were news radio stations that I used to listen to as a way of educating myself. So as they spoke, I used to systematically repeat after them to myself, just so the words can stick. And I figured, the more they speak, the more I listen, the more I repeat, the more words are going to stick. And it worked. But then, there are some commentators that come in between those news broadcasts. And this person says, what's the difference between an educated person and a non-educated person? And then the person that's, being asked gives a couple of different answers. He goes, and then the person says, the difference is that a person who has not been educated will smell the flower and say the flower smells good. But the person who has been educated will say, after smelling the flower smells good. And he or she will know why it smells good. That's the difference. It's very simple. But that's the truth of my story. And those three things really impacted me, seeking higher education or education. Mr. Montalvo telling me, Mr. G or Dr. G dropped out and he came back, and you will come back. The cemetery, after burying my baby. And this little, statement that I heard on the radio. You don't know how things work in your brain sometimes.
Exactly.
And they impacted me a lot. So I tried to get a GED. I don't know where you live and if the GED is the same system there.
Right. Yes.
So I tried to get a GED, and since my schooling was not really complete because I was so focused in mathematics, I was so good in mathematics, but not so good in everything else. Like I was mathematics, science, social studies, and English down here. Okay, so the GED wasn't working out for me. I went to one place, and they tried to, pull me in and teach me, but I wasn't absorbing the information, and I found it to be, complicated. And I'll just leave. And then I did that again. And then I don't know what happened. Someone told me to go see someone somewhere. And it's in Pelham Parkway in the Bronx. I went there and I met this African-American gentleman. He was sitting behind his desk. And he says, why do you keep trying to get your GED? I said, I want to go to college. He goes, how about if you go to college without getting your GED? I said, can I do that? He goes, yes, you can. He says, go register in a college. And he gave me a list of colleges. And God bless him. You know, I hope Allah Ihdi al Islam if he's not yet. And, you know, because he helped me a lot. And he said, just go to you know, Mercy College, or go to Westchester Community College, or go to this college or that one, and register for non-matriculated courses, adult education courses. And I guarantee you one thing, he said, once you get 24 college credits, no one will ever ask you about a high school diploma again.
That's right.
And then it's amazing because I went and I registered at Mercy College. I took environmental science, business management, and algebra. I couldn't do my GED, but I got an A, an A, and an A. I could not believe it. You know, because those are things that I was interested in. I was interested in mathematics. You know, the environmental science class was very interesting. I learned so many new things. And the business course, you know, the professor asked, you know, who wants to be here and who needs to be here? Who's doing it for their degree and who wants to be here because they love business? And I raised my hand. I said, I want to be here. I love business. And from there on, you know, I just kept taking classes and classes. And then after Mercy, I went to another college and I took more classes and more classes and more classes and more classes. I had over 100 credits and I wasn't thinking of getting a degree. I was never matriculated. So then my wife says, she can hear me, she's here now. She says, why don't you just, you know, get a college degree? I said, you know, I don't need a degree. I just want the knowledge. She goes, no, but you can get a degree. So I went, I spoke to one of the counselors there. And he says, you know, you're ready almost to graduate. If you become matriculated, we accept, because you took most of these courses now at this university, which is purchased. Because I went to so many universities and we added all these credits for you, but you need to take a music and an art class. Okay.
Yeah.
So I took my art class, and then I did music, history through music, which taught me a little bit of history as well. And then I got my degree. And when I got my degree, I kept recalling something. This is when I started converting it to a degree. I realized that there was another building in the complex with a big sign. It says Long Island University, master's program. And then it said 25% off purchase graduates. So I went there and I said, you know, I'm about to graduate. If I graduate from there, you're going to give me 25% off for me to do my master's here? And they said yes. So after leaving purchase, I went to LIU, got my master's. And then after that, I went into a doctoral program, St. John Fisher's. And then they threw me out because I was a little bit too much for them. Too much or too little. Okay. And I said, you know, here I am so far and so close to a doctorate. I already started writing my dissertation in that program. And I was going to challenge him. I was going to put a lawyer, and I started all kind of stuff. And then this professor of mine, her name is Dr. Edwards. She, I called up by the advice of someone else. And I said, you know, Dr. Edwards, they fired you, Dr. Edwards. And you were like the queen of the program. You were like the main person. Wow. And they got rid of Dr. Valenti. And Dr. Valenti was like the king of the program. And he was. And now they got rid of me too as a student. And then she said to me, and I was very angry or frustrated. And then she said to me, forget about me, forget about Dr. Valenti, and forget about all the wrong things they've done to you or to us. Let me ask you a question. What could you have done different to have had a different outcome? What could you have done different? And for some reason, she diffused me. And I was able to realize that I had a lot to do with it also. Then she goes, call Pat, this woman named Pat. She's a friend of mine now. And then Pat says, you know what? I was withdrawn from this program too, forcefully, and 2 other women. Forget about St. John Fisher. We tried to do everything to challenge their decision, and we were not effective. We even went up to Rochester, New York, where the main campus was, and no one wanted to hear us. Just come to Manhattanville College, and they have a program. I think it's called ABD program, all but dissertation, meaning if you already done your studies, Manhattanville will take you in.
Right.
And you only have to do X amount of credits with them, and they'll recognize all the other credits that you've taken with the other people. And it was so then I went, and she said, go speak to Dr. Munson. And I went and I spoke to Dr. Munson. By the way, my message here is that never give up.
Right.
And that, we're blessed to be in this country. And there's so many doors that you can knock on. And there'll be people there to open and let you in. But you have to make the effort. So I went to Dr. Munson. And then he said to me, I want you to write me a letter. I wrote him a letter. He goes, give me a sample of, your chapter 1 from before. We did that. And he welcomed me to the program. Then I asked him, Dr. Munson, is it true that this is the only program in New York that's called the ABD program? Because it's the only program in the world.
Yeah.
In the world. I said, oh my God, how lucky am I? So then I signed up this program. It was challenging because I had to do a lot of things over, but a lot of the stuff that I learned from St. John Fisher was reinforcing what I was learning here. And they complemented one another. And I was able to navigate through. But one professor, he was in my committee. How can I forget his name? Dr. Wan. He was in China when he was when I was presenting for my doctorate, and he did it over Skype at the time. So I had my other 2 committee members here, and he was in China. He was vacationing there. So Dr. Wan, early on the program, he said to a few of us that were there, he says, we're giving you a second chance. There will not be a third. So, we all, did what we had to do, and we celebrated earning our doctorate, and it was an amazing achievement.
Alhamdulillah.
And that was 2 years ago.
Mabruk, congratulations. And it seems like it all goes back to what that dean or that guidance counselor told you in high school, that you just weren't ready, and you had to want it. It wasn't just about that piece of paper or finishing that exam. It was about the knowledge. You wanted that knowledge, but only when the time was right.
And I know that you had asked me about my journey as a Palestinian, as a refugee. But that was the whole journey altogether right there.
So it's a wonderful message. I've taken so much of your time, and I know how busy you are. I wonder if you wouldn't honor us as we close out the show with a closing dua.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, protect you, bless your family, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all to the straight path, and may Allah use us in any way He sees fit to advance our da'wah, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan.